Hello there. Right. We're a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, but we might as well start appearing so we can get everybody here. There we go. I'm going to unmute you all. I don't know if I've accidentally muted you. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. There we go.
We can mute ourselves if you want.
You can manage that. Where's Rick? I'm not actually in charge here. How is everybody while we're waiting for Rick to just pop in? How is everybody doing? We good?
Fine.
Yep. Fine. There's a lot of you, isn't there? My God.
It's good.
Nice. Right.
And one of you's using the background. Kate, don't feel pressured. Don't feel pressured. I know you won't. Oh no, Tim is as well. Look at that.
What?
See?
Well, I just, we're playing along, but I'm
I
happy.
like you playing along. It's like you keep my art.
I'm happy to go back to the temple, or
that is brilliant.
Or my usual default for Zoom meetings is this Millennium Falcon. So
Nice. Wow.
That's very cool. That is very cool. Less said about the latest film,
green
better.
screen.
Well, this one I used. I don't yet actually ordered one. It's coming this week where I can pull it down from the ceiling. But this one I used because we had to record our online panel for WonderCon a few days ago. So I used this one, but I was cosplaying as Indiana Jones, so it was very appropriate.
Well, we can do it today as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're always.
See, I got my hat's just sitting right back there, and my idol's right there, and so.
Cool. Well, I'm very grateful. People are sort of tipping in. We've shouted out. We've got a good number of people sort of sign up. We're doing a bit of a test. So you're our test subject. So thank you very much for this. This is a new thing, a new free thing. This is not a full-on PG Connects. This is just us. We want to do a regular roundtable as part of the PocketGamer.biz brand, which edited by lovely Rick Cowley will take over in a minute. And yeah, this is the first one. So we're just testing a few things out. We're live in Zoom where people can interact and ask questions and stuff as we progress, but also we're going to be streaming this on the YouTube as well. So, imagine the scale of your audience is going to be huge. I think I'm ready to shut up really now. And I just want to say before I hand over to Rick, this is the games industry in the time of COVID-19. It says including working from home, because we kind of mashed two things together. So, it's all related themes. Rick's the editor of PG.biz will be your host. This is in association with the lovely folk from Tamatem. There's Hassan there with his tomato, looking lovely. And yeah, it should be an interesting panel. Obviously, we will make this available as well, distributed even wider afterwards via our channels. And that's it for once. I'm gonna shut up, I think, and just hand the mic to Rick. Rick, the floor is yours. Off I go.
Hooray! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever PocketGamer.biz Roundtable. As mentioned a few times now, my name is Rick Cowley. I am the editor of PocketGamer.biz, and we'll be leading these roundtable sessions. We're trying to do them at least bi-weekly. I think we've got quite a few weeks lined up now, but we'll focus on the one for today, which we will be talking about the games industry in the time of COVID-19, including working from home and the general sort of games industry as a whole. We're doing this in association with Tamatem. And Sam, if you have any words you want to spark us off with as our partner.
Thank you so much, Rick, and definitely very excited to be here with you guys. And I know this time is tough for everyone, for the planet, but gaming has maybe a different take on that. I've seen a lot of things have improved in the gaming industry. A lot of recognition even from investors and from the folks in the gaming industry for that. I'm definitely honored to be on the panel with you today, and I look forward to a great 1 hour of chat.
Woohoo! Yay! Lovely chat for all to enjoy. And obviously it wouldn't be a panel without a series of guests. So I would love it if everybody could just go around and introduce yourselves, who you are, what you do, and I'm trying to get all my questions lined up in the window properly. There we go. And if you could just sort of give an oversight into where you were working before the pandemic broke out and how long you have been sort of remote working, if you have been doing it for a longer time. Let's start with Asi.
Thank you. And thank you, Hussam, for inviting me to the panel. I'm a Tilting Point, a mobile publisher, free-to-play games. I'm heading business development as part of the leadership team. And, you know, for us, it has a lot of impact. We're 130 people. It's not a huge company, but we have 5 offices. So both in Europe, Korea, US, and in different times, we went into a lockdown mode. And we need to do a lot of work remotely in different time zones, different regions. And we need to adapt very quickly to be efficient and make sure that we can continue game production, game publishing, and we can talk about it more as we go into the conversation.
Yeah. Sabrina?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sabrina. I am the head of Farm Hero Saga at King. That means I'm an executive producer. I've been working with games for about 10 years and been at King 4 years actually this week. So yay.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Thank you. I've worked in many different places, but I've been in London for 2 years now. And obviously, like since the pandemic started, the whole King offices, all of them have worked from home since March, early March. So we've all been working remotely since then.
Cool. Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Edwards. I'm the executive director of the Global Game Jam, and I'm also a geographer and the CEO of my own company, Geography, that does content culturalization on games and other stuff. And as of last month, I've been in the industry for 27 years. And for me, I've been working from home for over 15 years. So yeah, and yeah, so basically I've been still home. The big difference for me is because I usually travel 80% of the year is I have not been traveling for about, the last trip was maybe 6-7 weeks ago.
Cool. Sophie?
Hey, hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Sophie, and currently I'm working as a game lead at Voodoo. And yeah, I've been working also in the industry over a decade. And in the past, I've been working at companies like Gameloft, Wooga, and Rovio. And I joined last year Voodoo to open a new studio in Berlin. And I would say most of my career in games, we didn't work remote. So I worked very closely to teams. So most of the time we were on site until 2 months ago, where basically the majority of my team joined and we were immediately working remote. So we formed the team remotely, which is a special situation, but yeah, we had to adapt and learn quickly from that.
Cool. Tim?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tim Cullings. I'm currently at Oculus here in Seattle, Washington. And even though I do work in an office most times, my team is spread out all over the world. So remote working is something that I'm used to. I've been working from home since about mid-February when we actually had a case in our office. So they closed us pretty early and sent everybody home. I also run Seattle Indies here, which is a nonprofit. And for indie game developers, we do events and build community for our independent game developers to help them with their careers and make their games better. And also do work with IGDA and Global Game Jam as well. And those are all remote over Slack and whatnot.
Cool, thank you. And Hussam, we've already heard from you, but introduce yourself again.
Yeah, my name is Hussam. I'm CEO of Tamatem. We're a mobile games publisher for the Arabic-speaking market. So we work with international game developers to localize their games, make them culturally relevant before releasing them on iOS and Android in the MENA region. Remote work has been definitely a challenge because we've never done it before. We are a team of 55 people, all based in Jordan. And we've never done it, and we've always been scared of it. And the minute it started, I felt it was natural, which is very exciting, actually. And I think this will open the door to like a huge change in the future regarding like work from home and being very flexible about it, and potentially hire people that don't need to be sitting just beside you at the office. So definitely tough, but very manageable and very productive, I would say. So it's good.
Cool, excellent. Great. So that's everybody introduced, and we can get on to the meat and bones of this. So we're going to talk about the games industry, working from home, and how the pandemic's affecting things. One thing I wanted to sort of just to set the tone of the entire discussion, and one thing that I'm particularly interested in, because we've heard a lot of stories about developers who are finding success even in these difficult times, because people are spending more time at home playing games and spending money and that kind of thing. So I was just kind of wondering, like, as much as we hear all these stories, is it actually true that the pandemic is having a positive impact on the games industry? Or is there more to it than just revenues and that kind of thing? Does anyone want to jump in on that one?
Well, I'd be happy to start. I mean, I think it's like most industries, I mean, but especially in the digital side, I mean, I think the game industry, there's absolutely a positive benefit from the revenue side. I mean, we're seeing, you know, stories of games surging and sales and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think that's great. But at the same time, we're seeing, you know, certainly a mental health cost for people who are not used to working from home, who have been cooped up now for over, you know, 2 months or more. And for a lot of people, they're not suited for it, you know, and as fortunate as we are as an industry to be able to do our work remotely, you know, and we are very fortunate and frankly privileged to be able to do that. I think for a lot of people that I talk to, you know, the feeling of being cooped up and not being able to go out and see people, it is taking its toll. And so I think whereas we as an industry, from the quote industry side with the revenue and all that, are doing fine, on the people side, you know, I think there's going to be a cost, just like there is for much of society.
Yeah, Rick, I wanted to chime in. You know, we have a unique perspective at Tilting Point because we work with 30 different developers, and the games are from different genres and different type of games. And we definitely see the boost. I mean, April was the best month of the company ever. At the same time, you know, we see it as a short-term revenue boost and you know, user acquisition boost that might change long-term. You know, if there is a recession, people will spend less. There are the issues that Kate is speaking about. So, you know, we should be very I think very happy that we're in this industry and we can make games that entertain people under tough conditions. But, you know, it's we need to see the lasting impact. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention is that we're very happy also to see initiatives like the, you know, play a part together. So there are things that I think the gaming industry is coming together. People feel a common cause, and this is very positive to see as well.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think it's very important, right? I personally feel very humbled to see people around the world connecting through games and through our games. Obviously, like, it has triggered, like we talked, it's triggered a boost in the industry as millions, billions of people are just home and they have more time and they play more. We are seeing players competing at a record pace. Like, they're playing levels, more and more engagement has risen. Number of game rounds per day reached its highest level ever. But it also, I think it's what, as he said, like, we come together as an industry to support people. At King, we did a number of unlimited lives campaigns. So we just gave people for a week unlimited lives so they could play as much as they wanted to support them spending their time. It's a bit of that lock feeling. Like, I understand absolutely what Kate is saying. I miss people, which is super interesting because my partner is very introverted. Like, oh, I don't want any of this. I'm happy here. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to like have millions of people. I want to go into the London tube and like be squashed sardine.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. Another thing that I thought was really nice is that King partnered with the World Health Organization, and we started sharing public health guidelines via in-game messages. And we were able to reach 250 million monthly active users with that, like, wow. You know, stay home and stay safe. So I think we are very fortunate to have these platforms and to help people connect and stay safe through entertainment. Because I think we can provide that minute of magic or that little session of fun that they can just escape and run away, because what's happening in the world is it's out of this world, right? So there are no words to describe it. And I think we are in that very fortunate role that we not only can operate successfully, we can also give them the little escape from the nightmares of day to day.
Have an impact on people's lives. Yeah.
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 Yeah, if I could chime in on that, I think where you might see some impact the other way is in the AAA development games like, you know, the Last of Us 2 already, the date slipped. I think you'll see more of that because of those teams rely on like very streamlined development pipelines and a lot of collaboration between multidisciplined teams. That's a little bit harder to coordinate from home. I work on more of the back-end tools side of things for our developers at Oculus, and I'm already seeing effects there of just things not being as effective as if somebody is in the office connected to our network and having the benefits of like distributed network rendering or so, something like that for high resolution graphic work that they do. It just doesn't work as well on VPN trying to transfer that much data. So in that case, you'll see some negative impact, I think. But as you said, for positive, I think you're seeing a lot more people gaming, and you know, games as the typical scapegoat for bad things in the world is not happening as much, and actually people are getting a lot of enjoyment and benefits out of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that is interesting that you mentioned game development pipelines, because that's something else I wanted to sort of touch on. Is there any sort of particular points in the game development pipeline that you mentioned, like that have been hurt by the pandemic that you've noticed? Like, which ones are hurt most? And then on the flip side, is there any part of the game dev cycle that is perhaps easier now that people are working remotely and that kind of thing? I don't know if that's even possible.
If I can start, I think that in our case, when the year started, we had like so many different plans for BD, and as you know, we are a publisher, very similar to what Tilting Point is doing. So we need to close deals and find like the good games to publish in the region, and we had the plans to attend a lot of conferences and meet people face to face, because in so many different cases. Although this is like a very dynamic, young industry, but you still need to have like a face-to-face conversation and meetings with these people, just like to build trust and build long-term relationship. Because, for example, publishing a game, this is like a 2-3 years at least relationship with someone, and sometimes it's 5 to 10. So you cannot just like sign it over an email and done. So this has definitely impacted us negatively on that front. But I believe the more people like got into the pandemic and started getting to use that, this is like the new norm. I'm starting to see more conversations like these are happening through Zoom, and they feel more natural. They feel more like if we are meeting in person. And I love like a lot of big conferences are trying to do online conferences for people to get connected to each other and talk to each other. We're still to see what will BD be like, the effect on BD for the next few months, but stable so far.
I can comment also more on game development side. So for our case, we started a brand new studio with a new team remotely. And so our first month was focusing on prototyping new ideas, brainstorming. And I think for that part, it was a bit challenging because a lot of these brainstorm discussions happen accidentally. It's not like, okay, because we planned that time, let's be creative on that slot and let's make the most of it. So a lot of this happen in real life, when you're at the coffee or when you have lunch or when you go somewhere and you have to create artificially these moments. So there's how far you can go. And one other aspect that I would say negatively impacted is also, well, more of the people aspect, as well as Kate mentioned. In my case as well, it's really important at the beginning of forming a team, building the trust, connections, and it's how far you can go as well through a video call. And seeing the visual cues and other things that makes, you know, social connections that you don't even see. And that also is a challenge, and it's part of the whole creative work that I would say has been affected by that. So iteration, brainstorm, just trust is something that needs to be done a bit artificially during the time.
Yeah, I want to comment on launching games. You know, Tim mentioned The Last of Us and you know the impact it has on launching in the industry. We're in mobile or PC free to play, so mostly it's digital, but it still makes a difference, right? So we actually launched today a big game, SpongeBob, and it's
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's cool.
It's a game that we worked on for 18 months. So as you can imagine, there was a big discussion, you know, is it the right timing to launch it? And the impact it had on the last 2 months of, you know, the last part of production when you need to be so focused and communication needs to be so efficient. But at the same time, there is the flip side that you launch it in the time that people actually would like to play it, right? So there was a big discussion, a trade-off. The positive thing I'm seeing is that because people are more aware that they need to be better communicators, it actually has some instance in the company that communication is going even better. Like leadership communication to employees, right? Communication across teams, because people invest more thought in it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. I've seen what I would call, you know, it's sort of a combination of Zoom fatigue, which I'm hearing from a lot of people these days, which they're getting tired of being on these long video calls. So it's like I've heard from several people that they feel like the decision-making processes are becoming more efficient. Maybe part of that is people just giving in because they're like, I just want to get off this camera and go back to work. Or it's just people are actually figuring out that, you know, we can, you know, maybe kind of like what Aussie said, you know, you're kind of prepped when you get on the call to basically make your case and be ready to, you know, make a decision rather than have the luxury of like hanging around the office room and, you know, then you wander off to lunch and still argue about it and all that. You basically make a decision and move on. So I think that might be introducing some level of efficiency.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything to add? No, good. Okay. Still on the topic of the pandemic, I thought was kind of threw me off where my questions were, but I think it was an interesting area to do into. I was also wondering, because we've got quite a lot of people from all over the world here. We've got people from the US and from Europe and Middle East. Are we seeing any ways that the market is being affected by the pandemic in different regions? Are we seeing like a global uplift, or are we seeing changes depending on the region? I can imagine there's different changes because of lifting lockdowns in certain areas, but I was wondering if anybody had any insights in that specifically that they've noticed in their regions or regions that they're working in.
I can start maybe being a specific example, right? One thing that happened in the early stages of the coronavirus outbreak, we saw our players in Italy, France, and Spain reaching out to us. They literally reached out to us through our forums and everything, saying that our games were helping them while they were in lockdown, providing fun and etc. And they asked like, oh, can you do something? Can you give more lives for us? Can we play like for a little bit more? And then that's how we went from starting experimenting in the cities that had the lockdown first and providing the limited lives for them and etc. so that they could engage more. And then we did that. It like motivated us to do for the entire world eventually, because they responded positively. It doesn't mean that giving players unlimited lives, so removing the in-app purchase of buying extra lives to continue playing, gives us more money, as you can probably understand that. But I think it was something that it's a small gesture that we can do to help them throughout this time. And I think in addition to that, our game teams, which obviously I work with brilliant people, right? They jumped into brainstorming mode, and what else could we do just besides giving lives? So there were specific live ops that we created for people in different games, right? Like Candy had something called the Cozy Cake Climb Telephone Tier, which was, sorry, it's a complicated name, but, and it's a Candy Crush world as well. But like, I think the teams, eventually what we wanted to do was support players more than anything. So I think there was a moment in which we just stopped and said, we didn't think about what was the best strategy to monetize anything. We just said, what can we do to keep our user base and our player base sane? How can we help them with that thing? So, and listening to them. So we started, like, we already had the dialogue, but we started bringing even more because they were reaching out to us. Obviously, I think part of it is because everyone is in lockdown and they were like, oh, I can like message this or I can do this. And we create this new routine, but that also helps set us up for success in the future, right? Like now they know that they can reach out to us and we will listen to what they're saying. So I think it not necessarily like affect the market region, but it provided us another channel or another window, not only to support players, but to listen to them as well. And they understand that if they go through that channel, we're listening, we're reading their comments.
Cool. Sam, have you seen any like major changes in the way that the Middle East is? Games in the Middle East and players in the Middle East.
So we have seen in our company in specific, we have seen a 30 to 40% increase in revenue month over month since March. So I believe that maybe our company since February has doubled in size, which is definitely very exciting. And maybe the biggest challenge that we are seeing today might be something hypothetical, and that it will not happen, but we are a little bit worried about like the situation in the Middle East in specific for the richer countries like Saudi Arabia and the other like very oil dependent countries who are like very affected by what's happening for the oil prices. So we are seeing countries like Saudi Arabia increasing their VAT from 5% to 15%, which will definitely have an impact on our revenues. Because at the end of the day, Apple will not deduct that from their share; they will deduct it from the developers' share, which is a different topic that I don't feel that is very fair. And at the same time, you can see that will that affect or have a very drastic impact on the spending behavior and the spending power of the users. Some other people are saying that it will not and it should not, because at the end of the day, although the economy is very much impacted, but at the end of the day, we are not spending money on anything anymore. We're not going out, we're not dining out, we're not buying anything. We're just like only the essentials, which is like the groceries and some other small stuff. So maybe that disposable income is still going, and they will still spend money and with the more engagement that we are getting, maybe that's like a key. And the last thing, I've seen a huge decline in CPIs in the region here. Main reason behind that is other competitors, but not gaming competitors, like the McDonald's and the who are competing to acquire users, are not spending money anymore. So that like lowered the cost of user acquisition significantly. These are like the major trends here in the region.
Yeah, one thing I'm seeing, Rick, in the US, in Europe, as a result of the market and investors' anxiety, I see, one way we help developers is by funding, right? And funding marketing, user acquisition. And we see many more developers coming to us and probably our competitors because other traditional forms of investment are a bit in limbo or pause, whether it's banks or investors or other forms of non-gaming, non-endemic investors, and that's something that we see very clearly. Developers need more support than ever.
Cool. Well, sorry, Tim.
I mean, on the Oculus side of things, the Quest is sold out pretty much everywhere lately because people are home more. They want to escape from the world that we're in right now. And you can also go in social spaces like Rec Room or something and actually be close to your friends and play a game and have it seem a little bit like, you know, the normal life that we are all longing for these days. So that's been good. And on like the indie development side, I know some people who have recently launched games and seen a pretty decent sales number. Like, I don't know the exact percentage, but much higher than they were expecting, to be sure.
Yeah, I've been dying to buy a Quest for a long time, and now would have been the perfect time to have one, but unfortunately, just not a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to move on a little bit from the generalized how the pandemic is affecting the markets and that kind of thing, and I want to focus more in on working from home and this kind of remote working thing. So I know we've got some people who are just new to it, people who have been doing it for a while. So I'm kind of wondering, like, other than the ubiquitous Zoom calls that we're all now in pretty much every day, every minute, how else have you adapted to working from home? And if you've worked from home for a while, how has your routine at all changed now that everybody else is working from home, or are you still sort of doing the same thing? Kate, I know you've been doing this for quite some time, so I'm quite wondering, like, has your routine changed as other people have adopted remote working, or are you still doing the same thing?
It's changed a little bit. I mean, my biggest change to my routine is the fact that I'm actually home, because like I mentioned, I travel a lot. So, you know, not being on a plane every week is a huge shift for me. But at the same time, I was already traveling a ton earlier this year before the pandemic hit. So I kind of feel like it's like on a weird extended stay at home between trips. And so the next trip, I don't even know, I think maybe October, we'll see. So in that respect, it's a lot different for me, but otherwise it's like from a day-to-day basis, it's no different from any other day I've worked from home for years. What is different though is the onslaught of all the video calls and everything, the phone calls and the weird scheduling and everything. Cause like Tim, I'm in Seattle, so we're offset from Europe and Asia quite a bit. So, you know, I'm used to that as well, but what the biggest thing I've seen is like, if you kind of scan across social media and everything among my groups of industry friends, seeing them try to adjust to it is tough. Because I know that when I started working from home way back in 2005, and that was after 13 years working at Microsoft in a pretty intense environment, it took me at least 6 to 9 months to sort of decompress and get used to that and kind of develop the self-discipline it takes to work from home and to like wake up every morning and have a routine and make sure you know what you're going to get done that day and all that. And I'm seeing so many friends struggling with that, and they feel just kind of, you know, like they're kind of wandering, almost like they're lost sometimes, especially the longer this goes on. So, you know, some people adapted pretty quickly and others I think are still struggling with it. And so I've been trying to help as much as I can, you know, with that. So that's probably the biggest impact I've seen, is just seeing how others around me have tried to adjust to it. And for some, it's been pretty tough.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you said. Obviously, like, I never thought that you guys would see my bedroom. Never thought the people that I work with would see my bedroom at all. You know, let alone a bunch of people that I've never met in person. But that's absolutely fine. But I can relate to the routine. Like, there were little things that I didn't know, because that I have never worked from home for more than a period of like 2 days in a row or something. And little things that you do, like put a nice t-shirt, put some jeans on some days, you know, that actually affects your mindset.
It does.
Like I said, I'm working from the bedroom, right? So I had to find different ways to not think that this is my workspace, because I also need to rest here. And that shift in mindset is much more challenging than expected. But I think one thing that we also now talking about, as someone that has, like, I lead a team of 50 people, right? So it's not just about my routine. I have to ensure that there are 50 people that are healthy, comfortable, safe, and feeling okay and productive. So obviously we need to shout out the unsung heroes, which is the IT teams all around, that were able to provide us with the VPNs and all the equipment and everything that we needed. And then things that we would take for granted, like I didn't have a table. I had no table at home. So I started working from my bed, which obviously like the first day was over and I was like, okay, so I'm old and I'm gonna like die. I'm not gonna be able to do this. So it's real, right? All the pain and etc. So I mean, we're currently working on a large scale. We have a lot of people that work at King, but the company has been providing us with a lot of support in finding like we can expense chairs, we can try to get the table. We obviously it's something that we have to be reasonable. We're not, but at the same time, we care about those things as well. Some things I did with the team, I sent an invite for a meeting of 15 minutes in the afternoon at 2 p.m. called break. So that people just like leave your desk, because it's so much easier for you to sit at your desk and then your Zoom calls, and then you just go and then, oh, look, an email, it's here. No, don't worry, I'll check it here. And even if you just book half an hour for you to chat, you will end up talking about work because things are popping up and Slack is popping up and it's always constant information. So I booked that for them, but then I also needed to take care of myself, which as we can all say, see is clearly not my best trait, but I also like blocked an hour for lunch because I needed to leave this. Usually when we are in the office, a lot of people eat lunch at their desk, but you do walk to the meeting rooms and you walk to different floors, or you go outside or you commute. So that's acceptable. But here I'm sitting on this chair and like looking at the same things. And if I eat lunch at my desk, then it's just, I need to break that pattern to make my brain reset. So I think there's just little things that we're doing. And obviously we have to take care of health as well, mental and physical. So we are covering costs of testing and any treatment that we need. But at the same time, we're doing mental health sessions more often, and it's something that as he mentioned, like leadership is spending more time. So now every 2 weeks we have a call with the president and everyone in which we can ask questions, and it's like a fireside chat. It's not just a business update. And I'm hosting sessions as well. We have therapists that host sessions with the team. There's Q&A, and we're keeping track of the trends on how people are feeling. We literally ask them, how is your mental health today? How do you feel today?
That's great.
And then they give us the feedback, and we're like, okay, so let's have a conversation. And obviously, like at King, we have a bunch of people that relocated for their jobs, and we had people that started in January, in February. They have no friends, they have no family, they moved here, and that's their, I mean, at least in my view, that's that pressure that they're still on probation, they live on a visa, what is happening, and like they still didn't have that time to get to know the team. So I'm, again, very fortunate that my team is almost like my family. We hold social interactions. We do like cocktail master classes after work, or, we watch movies together, and people can just join and each one of them volunteer. Oh, I know how to make like spaghetti carbonara, so let's sign it at 6 p.m. and I'm gonna teach everyone. And then like half of the team joins in and we just have a laugh, because we also need to remember not everyone has a family or friends here. And at the same time, those that have kids at home and need to do the homeschooling, we need to give them flexible hours, which is also challenging when you're working from home because you're always here, right? So it's all these things that we never took into consideration before, or at least I didn't like really thought about it in depth, are improving because we do want to support them. And I think flexibility is the word that we need to keep in mind when we change now, like, and working from home.
I love that.
Go ahead.
I think that we also tried to do something around these things, because mental health is a very neglected thing in this pandemic. Everyone is talking about like health in general. But in Jordan, for example, we had a challenge where there is a lockdown, like a curfew between from after 6 p.m. until 10 a.m. Every day. You cannot move, you cannot go outside the house. So our working hours used to be from 10 a.m. to 6. So if you are working from 10 to 6 on your desk at home, then at the beginning it was like, okay, fine. Then we discovered that a lot of the people did not see the sun outside for a week. And even they used to do a complete lockdown on the weekend, like complete. We cannot move outside at all. So we decided that once a week we will do from 5 to 6, where like all of us will have a Zoom call while we are walking outside. Like everyone has to mandatory go walk outside for an hour, and while we are at Zoom. every day we try to do a 1 hour, 15 minutes of stretching together. We're trying to make as many ideas. Every week we have like a quiz night, things like these. But definitely mental health, as you mentioned, Sabrina, is a neglected topic that has to be addressed like in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's talk about kids for a second.
Yeah.
Who has kids on the panel?
I have a daughter.
Okay.
But my daughter's 32 and lives in California, so I'm good.
That's not a kid anymore.
So I have 2 kids, 8 and 10. So right now, for example, they're locked in the room with my wife, you know, that basically taking care that they're not verging in or anything. But on a more serious note, I think that this is something also to consider. We have members of the team that are now tending to their kids, you know, they're not in school. It's a lot of work. It's very tough. It depends also on what you know, the men and I mean the men and women are doing in their job and how their routine goes. I think it demands much more consideration, much more transparency. You know, that if you're not available at certain hours, make sure that your teammates know. You know, and the teammates should be very considerate on those kind of times and the effort that you're doing beyond work. So I see it as a major impact on families for sure.
Yeah.
I think
And I think it's about flexibility. Sorry, I just want to say
Yeah,
it's about flexibility as well, right? Like we do have members on the team that, I mean, they have to split, right? The husband and the wife, they need to split who takes care of the child and what time. So what we told them is like, yes, you let us know when you can be available, and we will make sure that we'll communicate. We'll make you feel included in everything. And if there's something that you need to be, that's imperative that this person is part of, then the team adjusts to that person, because it's super challenging. And we also encourage people, which sounds weird, to take time off. You need vacation, you need a break. And I myself was like, oh, I don't want to book vacation because I'm not traveling. It feels like I'm going to waste my days here at home, but that's not it. You need to rest as well. So that's important. And I'm sorry, Tim, that I said something. I just wanted to add on that.
Yeah, I was going to agree about the flexibility side. Like, I'm used to working from home, but a lot of the people that I support are not, and their schedules are all different. As you said, like they have kids and they're trying to homeschool and do all these different things. So I have to be a little flexible with when I'm available to help them when they need help, and also try to maintain my own sort of routine and boundaries of how much work I'm actually doing, and keep that in mind so I don't burn myself out as well. It's been a challenge so far, but it's going okay. And on the nonprofit side, I've been trying to do regular check-ins with the people that volunteer for our organizations and make sure that they're still doing good, and see if they need anything from me and how we can help support them with their mental health and all that.
Cool. And so, you know, we've got all the organizations and everybody who's changing their work, but companies are still growing, companies are still hiring. How has hiring changed in this world? Like how has that been affected? And a question that I was kind of wondering is, like, should companies stop hiring at the minute now that there's all this uncertainty about the economy and everything like that? Is it time to stop?
We hired and onboarded 10 people during Corona, which definitely was a big deal, because not only hiring, interviewing, and hiring people online, but also onboarding them. We needed to learn that a lot. Like we talked to so many different mentors and experts and on remote work, to know how do you do like an onboarding remotely, especially with this time, especially with Corona. So definitely exciting. That gave us a lot of publicity because we were able to attract talent in this tough time. All the companies, a lot of companies here in Jordan and the Middle East, for example, are laying off employees, and around the world, of course. But hiring in this time is definitely interesting, but we had to, because the companies has grew so much in the past 2 months. We cannot do it alone, so we need to find like good people to join the company and hire good people.
I mean,
I would agree.
I mean, I would argue that, I mean, given the impact on employment right now, I mean, here in the US, as people probably heard, we've got a massive amount of unemployed. And, you know, they're saying the actual rate could be somewhere between 15 and 20% right now, which is staggering. I mean, it's the worst, even worse than the Great Depression 100 years ago almost. And so to me, it's just like there are people out there who have skills, and maybe they weren't actually working in games at the time, but they might have the skills that we need for a specific role. So I think this is a really bad time to stop hiring, because there are people out there who need jobs, and they might actually be the people that you want. So my encouragement is that people should still keep the process going, you know, and you know, like you were mentioning, is make the proper adjustments for how you onboard someone virtually and all that. But yeah, I would say don't stop.
Yeah, 100%. Like if your company is in position to hire, and that you should continue. And I agree 100%, Kate. Today we have a new starter in my team with someone that never worked in the game industry before, and that's exactly it. Like there were a couple of things that we changed. We haven't stopped because you know we're always looking for the best talent, and we are continuing to produce content that doesn't, like the pandemic doesn't change. But one thing that we did is we reached out to our employees, and we made an improved referral scheme, because if they have friends or family that has been affected by this, then great. If you trust them, and if they have the skill set, sorry, that we need, then we want those referrals, and we want those people. We want to support the ones that we trust. Obviously, like that can, it's a win-win situation, right? So I think, again, I agree. It's important for us to open our eyes and look and try to diversify. I think it goes a bit before, even without the pandemic, we do need to diversify the experiences. We can have, it's important for us to have a team of people that have different backgrounds, so that we can always attack problems from a different perspective, right? So I think this is an opportunity for us to bring more talent from different backgrounds into an industry like ours.
Yeah. You know, before the panel, I talked to our HR director to kind of get her view on recruiting. And, you know, she told me, just like people here said, you know, keep hiring if you can, but she talked about hiring responsibly, in the sense that, you know, just like we talked about communication earlier, it's like you put more effort, right, in the evaluation. Is it a critical position? How it's going to affect other positions, and how to make onboarding successful. I mean, things that you take for granted otherwise, you need to pay much more attention, right? And do it much more thoughtful than you did it before.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, for IGDA, we had actually been planning our big annual job fair for tomorrow, which would be like 20 to 30 people, companies, and 300 people in a room all talking to each other. And obviously we can't do that now. So we've been pivoting, trying to figure out how to do that effectively online and still bring in the same type of numbers, and maybe even more, since it wouldn't be people just here in Seattle. We could bring in people from all over the world, really, if they were able to attend. So just trying to figure out how to make that an online event has been a challenge for us as well.
Cool. And Sophie, have you seen any changes in hiring practices at all at Voodoo?
Well, for us, because now we are, I would say, quite international, it hasn't changed much in our approach. We are hiring everywhere, so we're still continuing to hire people from everywhere. And even in my own experience, we have hired most of the people like remotely until we met them once. So that is the step that is removed of the process. But then during the process, we compensate with it by more calls with different people of the team, and trying to make the interview a bit more casual, where it's not just about inquiring skills, but more getting to know the people. And these days I'm considering even to hire people remotely, so they could stay in their location, because we don't know when that will change. So it's also opening up new possibility that before it was a requirement to think, oh, maybe the person should join the team on site. And now I'm being more open to the idea of that person could actually stay where they are, because we are all working from home anyway. So, and if that gives the whole world as a possible territory to just recruit all the talents.
Cool. And thinking of when this will end, we all hope, at some point in the future. I imagine people will start returning to offices and returning to work and the new normal and everything that people have been sort of touting. How do you think working lives are going to change post coronavirus? After we've all got used to remote working and then we all start going back to the office, how do you think that's going to affect how people like change their working lives and structure their lives and that kind of thing?
Well, it's going to be strange at first. I think people are, there's going to be a certain level of elation to see people face to face again. But I think the trepidation is always going to be there. It's going to be there for a very long time, because we're all germ carrying creatures. And so, there's always kind of that little paranoia that's going to carry with us about, I wonder if you've been exposed. Of course, when a vaccine eventually shows up and we're all immune at some point, to a certain degree, I mean, that's going to pass until the next virus shows up. But, I think the biggest thing to me is how much the companies adjust to the people and the needs of the people. And I'm hoping, and I think I'm seeing, at least my view is that a lot of the companies are understanding now the importance of this level of flexibility, because people's lives are very different from person to person. So you should, remote work can actually work. It actually is effective for the right people. And it may not work for everybody, but we'll probably see a much more mixed environment. And, and I'm speaking from, I remember the days back in the early 90s when I had to try and do some remote work when I was working at Microsoft, and it was so vilified and frowned upon. And I was to some degree ostracized for even the idea of working from home, but it's like, hey, I was newly married and I had a daughter and all that. And it's just like, sometimes I had to leave at 3 p.m. to go pick her up from school. It's like, how dare you leave? You're supposed to be here until 8 p.m. And, I'm thankful for that. Culture has gone away for the most part. But I think we're going to see a much more mixed environment, though. You may not see as many desks full as there used to be.
Sure, which is better for companies in general. Like it will definitely lower the cost to set up an office, and will allow you to attract more talent, because now you can like hire people at least from a similar time zone. I don't think this will teach us to hire people like from like a very distant time zone, because that is still like a different challenge that we need to learn about, like how to solve for that. And definitely also it will lower the cost on the employees themselves, because they don't need to spend money on commuting and eating outside. Because in our office, for example, people will order food every day, and they will lots of like bad habits used to be formed at the office. So now it is good. I mean, I think it's a good idea what's happening.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to say that, mixed environment, I think is as Kate said, is a very good phrase. Look, our headquarters are in New York, First of all, I don't think the return is going to be one moment. We're talking, unfortunately, about possibility of a second wave. We're talking about long-term consequences. And also, in a city like New York, it's not only about being at the office together, it's about commute. That's the main risk, that you go on a subway with millions of people. So I think that the idea that, all of this is just magically go away is not very realistic. I already saw last week and this week, Facebook and Google spoke about remote work as an optional thing until the end of the year. So yeah, I think we will see changes and we will see a mixed environment and companies adjusting.
Cool. We do have some audience questions that I just want to quickly touch on. Thank you everybody who's joined in and sending in questions. There was one that I was going to ask that sort of fed in. Yep. So an anonymous attendee asks, do you think companies will be more open to allowing their employees to work from home when needed after this is all over? I know we've kind of touched on that, but it also feeds into something like, so yeah, like are companies going to be more open to this, and should they be more open to this overall? What do we say?
Yes.
Yeah, I can comment quickly on that. More on the we are having this discussion actually these days with my team and company level, where people are asking, actually finding that they enjoy themselves working from home, that works for them, and will they be allowed? And at least at Voodoo, we have a lot of flexibility, independence by teams. So I will comment more on what is my view on our team level, and we are even discussing these days what makes sense for us. So the question will always come now: why do we need to go to the office, and is that meeting necessary, or do we have to all be there? So then we look more closely, like all the things that we are doing by habits and routine, are they really necessary? So at least on our end, we are actually revisiting the way of working, and which is more legacy than what is the modern way of working, and that works for the lifestyle of people and also more efficiently in some cases. So for us, yeah, we will definitely change our way of working after that.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Super psyched about getting everybody in remote working all the time in the future.
Yay.
I love what Sophie said, because Sophie said that this might be like just like a legacy that we are all like born and raised to think about like work in this way, that you need to go to the office, you need to do that, and then you need to go back home and live. But why? Like, is this like the most efficient way, or is this something that we found like people like older than us doing in the past, and then we followed? So maybe this is like a good time for us to rethink work from home and all of these things. It might like actually disrupt, but I think it will still need more time. Yeah, we need to spend, I hope not, but we need to spend like more and more months at home, working from home, to realize that and change these facts inside our heads.
Cool. I'm gonna ask another question. It's popped up a couple of times in the chat and in the Q&A. I think, Azzy, this one's going to be suitable for you especially. Another anonymous attendee asks, we're looking at launching our first game next month. We keep hearing it's a great time, but we're not a big studio and worry we'll get lost. Any tips on if we should hold off, or what are the best channels to promote? And there was another question that was also like, do you have any advice on launching a game during this time? Azzy, you've just launched a game today. Do you have any advice?
Look, I think that obviously each game, each company has a different context. I would say it is at least for us, the decision looking at the overall situation was that it's a good time to launch because of the heightened engagement, because marketing works better, because people have much more attention to new things that are coming up. So in our case, it was definitely bigger than the disadvantages, which are clear. You know, it's not to do something like this remote and be focused and attentive and collaborative is a challenge. But we thought on the trade-off that the state of the lockdown and the engagement that the people are hungry for entertainment is at the end of the day more important.
Is anybody else looking at launching a game at the moment? Or I've noticed quite a few companies are still soft launching and stuff, but is game launching still?
Yeah, we are soft launching and launching a couple of titles at the moment. I'm not seeing why this will be treated any different from any other time. I think it's very similar to launching a game at any other time, but you will need to take an advantage today. It might be a good time to launch a game. The main reason behind that, people have free time, CPIs are lower, and people have the ability to engage with your game and adapt it. Because, you know, if you are, for example, launching an RPG title or something that is hardcore, most people or most users that you are targeting have already been playing another game, and they will not switch to yours. So this is why the CPI will be very expensive and the retention will not be as good. But today, because there is like an extended time for these players, so they have the flexibility to still play their game that they are playing already and move to yours as well. So I think this is like there is no better time to do anything than now.
Cool. And I'm just going to take one last question because I know we're kind of coming up to time here, and I know some people have to get on with their days and stuff. Thank you all for and yes, I am together, and I'm going to ask this question. Who would like to know? So there's sort of a build-in and then the question at the end. Working in the gaming industry is always fun, but considering the times we're in now and regarding the situation of COVID-19, it's becoming more and more hard to have fun whilst working. Very understandable, especially if you're working in marketing as they are. So what tips do we as the panel have to enjoy working from home, to enjoy the time working from home more?
Well, I have one that I consider to be an easy one that I've told other people that they should consider when I've heard this question, is basically try and keep it in perspective. First of all, you can work from home. So you're already in a position which is far beyond most people in most countries around the world. So be thankful that you can work from home and basically do a job that hopefully you love, and you can keep doing it even while working from home. And I think on top of that, it's like, yeah, some functions in the game industry, like marketing, are affected right now. But I think it's a great opportunity for people to, if your job is being slowed down by the pandemic, this is a great chance to kind of stand back and think about, how can I do certain things better? How can I build new processes? How can I build in efficiencies? Be a bit introspective about how you do your work. What resources you use, what resources you need, all of that kind of stuff, because we're always so heads down and just so driven to do the job in the moment. I think it's really important that this is a great chance to actually take a bit of a breather and think on a meta level about your job and what you can do to do it better, especially when things pick up again.
Yeah, I agree to that. Like, it's almost like you have an opportunity to creatively think of other ways of doing your job. We're talking about how it's going to impact the change on working more remotely and etc. But there's also like, how do you change your process then to go through this? How do you use that creative juice, not just to be able to deliver what your day-to-day is, but like, how do you improve this? How do you gamify what you're doing if that's something that you want to do? But I think it's about those interactions that now you have an opportunity to either deepen them or try to do something different, which I think it's exciting, right?
Anybody else? Fun ideas to keep the fun alive whilst working from home?
Just try to keep like walking outside every once in a while. Like, try to change the routine. And as Sabrina said, that try not like to have like everything in one room, like eat and sleep and work in the same room. Like it has to, like, even like in our case at the office, we asked everyone when they started working from home that try to move to a different room or like work from a different angle, at least for you to maintain mental health, that that you feel that you are going out to do something else. Try to go for a small walk, take breaks, do fun activities with the team at different times, but don't like get stuck in a bad mood of that we are stuck at home and feeling very negative about it. That will like drive you crazy in a couple of months from now.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of positive stuff you can gain. I mean, I think that family bonds. I mean, if you are with your family, I probably spend much more time with my kids and wife as a result. I mean, even in reading, watching, I watch things that I always wanted to watch. For example, The Wire start to finish, right? It's a great opportunity. So I think that there are a lot of things in terms of reflection, hobbies, family, even beyond work, that you can actually, do things that you never been able to do in our hectic environment.
And play a lot of Animal Crossing. That's what I've found. It's been working.
That's good. That's excellent.
Oh my God, yes. Add me, everyone. Let me come and catalog all your stuff, please. Thank you.
Fabulous. Right, I think I'm going to end it there. It's bang on 5 o'clock for me. So, Chris, do you want to take over?
I was just going to, I'd have to take over. I was just going to say thank you to everybody. It's a brilliant panel. I appreciate you guys are all super important, super talented, and I really appreciate you giving us an hour of your time from your various beautiful homes around the world. We're all going over to Assie's now for a party afterwards. He seems to have the but I just wanted to say thanks again to you, Rick, as well, and just say we have got another one of these roundtables coming up about pitching. I need to hide myself. There we go. That's next week, May the 19th. We will ping people about that. So that'll be a panel talking about pitching, sort of tied into our big pitch. And then, of course, coming up, because you can't have too many digital events, as we've just established, Pocket Gamer Connects, Digital 2, use my big fat finger in the way, is coming up in June, in about a month's time from now. And plug aside, have a fabulous afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you all in person very soon.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forward to
Thanks
see you in
Bye,
person
guys.
soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe. Wash
take
your
care.
hands. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.